Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. I am so glad to be here tonight because we have got a special crossover show. I've got Thrift Barringer from Georgia Alabama Sports Live. I'm also part of Georgia Alabama Sports Live. We have got an exciting week of high school football. Thrift, welcome to the Sports Beat. I know you're representing Georgia Alabama Sports Live, Sports Visions. Great having you here on the show.
Yeah, well, Richard, you talked to me about I'm going to need you on the show. You do a 5-day-a-week show, which you do a great job with from WQEE and, of course, all podcast platforms. Man, you know what? We need to continue to put more content out there. It's game week. It's coming up on our first game. We got high school game day coming up. Let's just do a crossover show. Go live on Georgia Alabama Sports Live as well. And we got a lot we're going to be getting into. I do want to give a shout out to DJ Jones. It's presented by Sports Visions. This live right now for Georgia Alabama Sports Live and the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. We had Ronnie Brown on yesterday. And those who don't know Ronnie Brown, he was a Hall of Fame running back in high school. Just got inducted this year to the Georgia High School Hall of Fame. Was an All-American in Auburn. Number 2 overall pick, Pro Bowler, and now a very successful businessman. One of my favorite players growing up as a guy that was an avid fan and supporter of the Auburn Tigers, that 2004 team, which they went undefeated and didn't go to the national championship. That is almost unheard of. I'm going to say it again. An SEC team went undefeated and didn't go to the national championship game. It would never happen in a million years nowadays. It wouldn't have happened 10, 15 years ago. But 20 years ago, in 2004, the league was good. You know, Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, all these teams, they were in the top 10, top 15. But when Auburn started the season at number 18 and working its way up all the way to number 3, you had USC and Oklahoma. They didn't even lose. And back then, the Big 12 and the Pac-12 was viewed as equals to the SEC. Obviously, nowhere near the case. Heck, the Pac-12 is not even about to be a conference anymore. But it was awesome to have him on 4 to 6 p.m., 92.1 Smooth R&B and the Sports Visions Facebook page. Thank you so much, Richard. And we got a lot we're getting into. It's game week. I am so excited about what's going to happen this weekend at the Swamp.
I am excited. That is our high school showcase. St. Anne Pacelli Vikings at the Glenwood Gators at the Swamp, Sammy Howard Field. We are going to be doing a high school game day, 6 o'clock, and that will air at 7. And it's game time at 8 p.m. Eastern at the Swamp. And Thrift Barringer and I will have the call on Georgia Alabama Sports Live's Facebook page and YouTube channel. That is where this crossover show is being broadcasted right now as we speak on the YouTube channel for Georgia Alabama Sports Live and their Facebook. You can also catch this on the Sports Beats Facebook Live page. And I'm really excited to be a part of this crossover show. And I know, Thrift, that we had a show on Sunday talking about all the local high school sports to the Chattahoochee Valley, but we like talking about other sports. Thrift, you know, the AP poll came out. I know that Auburn was unranked. That should probably fire them up to have a great season. I cannot wait for college football. The NFL, you got preseason games going on for week 2. I mean, I'm excited that football is back in full force.
I agree with you, Richard. And, man, we couldn't have picked a better game to start our inaugural season on Georgia Alabama Sports Live than with the defending AISA state runner-up, Glenwood Gators, against the defending state champion and the GIAA, the Pacelli Vikings. These two teams are premier programs with excellent coaching staffs. And last year, it was a game that went all the way down to the wire. Pacelli ended up winning that game, but it was very close. I expect another close one this time at the Swamp. And we're adding a little flavor to it. We're going to do a high school game day. Our first high school game day, I think the first around this area, and we're going to be live on location at the Swamp. So at 6 o'clock, make sure to come and check out me and Richard. We got a great location on campus right by the baseball field, right before you walk in to the Swamp. So make sure you come and see us. We're going to have guest pickers. We're going to preview all the games for that night, talk about the games that happened the day before. A lot's going to happen in that 30 minutes. And then before you know it, at 8 o'clock, we're having kickoff for what should be a fantastic border war showdown between Glenwood and Pacelli.
It is going to be awesome, Thrift. And go ahead and give the Facebook page a like and the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are also on Apple Podcasts. So if you're driving your car and you just want to get the audio version of the podcast, you can download it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Make sure to put it up after the show. You can catch the show that Thrift and I do on Sunday nights as we just recap everything that's going on in the world of high school sports. As we're mainly, next week's show, Thrift, we are going to recap week 1 and we are going to preview week 2. I am so excited about that. And of course, we're going to have highlights and analysts of that Glenwood-Pacelli game. It should be a lot of fun, and I cannot wait.
Shout out to our partners, Jonathan Hoppy, Tony Reese at WTBM, Jack Patterson, WRBL, and Tyler Redmond. They got overtime. You got the prep zone. They're going to have highlights galore for the games that are happening on Friday, and we are going to be happy to be a special part of that. GAS Live, Georgia Alabama Sports Live. We're going to be live on our YouTube, live on our Facebook page. So I will be sharing, as soon as we get off the phone, Richard, on Georgia Alabama Sports Live Facebook page, the YouTube link. Please go and subscribe to us. That is where you will be able to watch all the games. YouTube, Georgia Alabama Sports Live, Facebook as well. And Richard, let's go ahead and get into it, man. We previewed a little bit on Sunday. You got to go talk and be at the coaches show. That's also on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel, the Glenwood Gators Coaches Show, hosted by Dusty Perdue. Richard, I'll start with you, and then I'm going to be interviewing Coach Jones and Pacelli tomorrow, and I'll give you my insight on what I've heard from the Vikings. From the Gators' perspective, what were some of the things you took away from that coaches show, and what was some of the insight you got from Coach Nelson when you had your own sit-down interview with him?
Well, first things first, Thrift, that Coach Nelson feels that this team, the expectations is to win a championship in the AISA. They played Lee Scott Academy close in the regular season twice last year. They did start the season 0-2, but those were non-region games. They want to continue to grow, and Coach Nelson's got all the confidence in the world that Dallas Crow is coming back as his starting quarterback. And I just think that they've been practicing hard, and Coach Nelson is going to have them ready game day against the Pacelli Vikings this Friday. And even though it's a very important game, this is a rivalry game, still a non-region game.
Right.
I feel like Glenwood can run the table once they get into region play. We know that Lee Scott Academy game is going to be tough, September the 15th, but it's at the Swamp. I think that is going to be huge, especially for the home field advantage. But I'm really confident after interviewing Coach Nelson and hearing the interview that Coach Perdue did. By the way, he did a fantastic job with the coach's show at Mike and Ed's Barbecue, a great establishment. CTV Beam was there. It was also broadcasted on the Glenwood Gators Facebook page. We had a lot of people watching the coach's show. I actually got some comments about it, and it was just a great event. And, you know, that's what I'm really looking forward to now on Mondays is getting to see the coach's show, because the people in Phoenix City, unless you're a Central fan, they truly care about the Glenwood Gators. They wear their Gator gear with pride, and it was quite the turnout as well.
It was, and I'm glad that you went and represented Georgia Alabama Sports Live the way you did, Richard. Great job by you. And Glenwood has been the type of team over the last 10 years. They have always came close, have been competitive. They've been to 4 state championships, but they have 0. And I know that's one of the biggest things with Coach Nelson. He's ready to get them over the hump. I thought you did a great job, Coach Perdue. He's always very well spoken. And these Glenwood Gators, they got a guy in Dallas Crow. You talked about, Richard. He is fast. He's athletic. He can get the ball in the air. And I expect Glenwood to open up their playbook even in that first game. But like you talked about, even if whoever loses this game, the season's far from over with. This game means nothing because neither one of these teams are playing in the same, not only state, but same region or anything else. So same organization, AISA, GIAA. It does matter for bragging rights, but it's still a litmus test to see where these teams are at as they head into what should be a long but very successful season for both of them. For Pacelli, I was told that they feel highly on Christian Brown. He is the quarterback that's starting now over Cam Ellis. He was a sophomore last year coming in his junior season. Coach Jones believes that this team has the ability to get out fast. They're not as big as they were last year, but they expect to throw the ball a little bit more. They got playmakers all over the field, including A.Z. Justy, a 6'3" wide receiver that's going to go play at the next level. I'll be interviewing Coach Jones right here on Georgia Alabama Sports Live Facebook page, and I'm going to ask him some of these questions like, hey, how do you plan on getting after Dallas Crow? How do you plan on getting pressure after him? Offensive line, that was one of your biggest strengths last year. This year, many people think could be a weakness. How's the offseason gone? Some questions that need to be asked, and I'm looking forward to talking with Coach Jones. But Pacelli versus Glenwood, it was great last year. It's going to be another good one this year.
I definitely cannot wait, Thrift. It is going to be exciting. But we do have a lot of other games in the Chattahoochee Valley, including, so WRBL's high school game of the week is Glenwood and Pacelli. WTVM's high school game of the week is Carver at Hardaway. And we're going to be having score updates throughout the broadcast. I will get on the GHSA website, make sure that we get the score updates as I'll have the computer open. There's just a lot of games that's going on. One thing I'm looking forward to, Carver is ranked, according to GPB Sports, 7th in their top 10. And I had John Nelson on the show yesterday, and he actually ranked Carver higher than 7th in his latest preseason polls. And I think that Carver is the team to beat in their region and could compete for a 3A championship. They're going up against a Hardaway team coached by first-year head coach Ryan McKenzie. He's got a freshman quarterback, Bobby Gary, and I cannot wait to see Bobby play. I know that we're going to be able to call some Hardaway games as well as Carver, and really just getting to know these Muskogee County schools during media days is really going to make for a great broadcast when we finally get to call some of these Muskogee County schools.
I agree with you. And last year, it was close at halftime. Carver ended up winning the game in a blowout fashion. Myself and DJ Jones had the pleasure of being able to call the game. But I'm with you. Coach McKenzie, I think this Hardaway team is going to make the playoffs. For one, they play in a region which there's only 5 teams. 4 of them get to make it. So that's a arrow in the right direction for them. And getting Bobby Gary, if he's able to have a decent season, I'm not saying great because that's a lot to ask of a freshman, but a decent season, the future is only going to be bright for this Hardaway team. And I see what Coach McKenzie's doing. He's playing younger players to build for the future. You're not going to win a state championship in the first year unless you go to a juggernaut like a Central or even maybe a Carver, where a foundation's been built for years and years. And it's hard for that foundation to get knocked off unless it's just something tragic happens. But Coach McKenzie's going to have a really good team. I expect it to be competitive. And for all those out there, I got a lot of AD's numbers. I'm going to be texting them throughout the broadcast, getting score updates. I know you're going to get updates as well, but we can't always rely on Max Preps. I'm interested in seeing how good Carver is. You know, they're young, as Coach Coffey talked about, but they also got a lot of firepower with this young talent. And if they get hot being in 3A, Carver can easily make another state championship run. I want to see how good they are and who are some of their key playmakers heading into this season.
You're absolutely right, Thrift. We did make our predictions on Sunday's show. And I think that Carver didn't just rebuild, they reload. They have talent all across the board. And really, Carver has been the staple in Columbus for excellence when you think of players in the NFL. And then the other teams in Columbus, they're trying to play catch up, and they're trying to be that Carver that we have known for the last 10 years. Shaw used to be that in the early 2000s with Coach Flowers. They won a national championship. They got to the championship game in 2006. I believe that first-year head coach Johnny Garner is the right guy to bring Shaw back to what we like to call as Shaw U.
Yeah, Shaw is a team that it has prestigious history. Not prestige, but prestigious history. Going back to their time during the early 2000s under Coach Charles Flowers. And now they got a guy that's related to him in Johnny Gardner. I like this Shaw team a lot. I think they're going to get off to a pretty decent start. I think 6-4 is what I predicted to go this year. That's maybe making the playoffs. I like Shaw a lot. And I think this is, again, like all teams, we know what we think, how good they're going to be. We think we know who are some of their players, or their top players are going to be. But this is why we got to have week 1. So we could start having real good evaluations for each team. And this will be another great test for Shaw.
So, Thrift, tomorrow, high school football officially starts because they will have the Corky Kell Classic. This has always been a tradition in Atlanta. It's starting on Wednesday. They wrap up it at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Saturday, which, by the way, that is going to be the site of the championship games. Having John Nelson on yesterday's show, he talked about the advantage having it at the Benz compared to having it at Center Park Stadium. I know Center Park Stadium did a great job, but sometimes weather becomes a factor because of the Falcons and things that happen that's out of the GHSA's control. The state championship games are going to be played on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I remember that, with the Falcons playing on Sunday, they got to get the stadium ready for the Falcons. So we're not going to have championship games like we normally had on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. So expect a different setting. But he also said that it's going to be a great opportunity to get more fans in the stadium. And hopefully one of these teams in the Chattahoochee Valley, if not more than one, is going to be playing a state championship game at the Benz. Carver could be one of them. I think that Troup County is one of them, and Schley County. I mean, those are my three that I think can make it. Of course, Pacelli will play in Macon. The GIAA state championship is Five-Star Stadium, the home of Mercer University. And then I believe Calvary, if they do make it to the state championship, the Gap still plays at the highest seeds home field, I believe.
Yep. I expect a lot of teams to make playoff runs. Shout out to for the Corky Kell Classic. I know I'm drawing a blank. He runs Score Atlanta. He comes on our show all the time. IJ Rosenberg.
RJ Rosenberg.
And, he created the Georgia High School Hall of Fame. They're getting inducted this week, by the way. Ronnie Brown, one of those inductees. We've had Jarvis Jones, a former Carver Tiger. He's getting inducted. So DJ Jones, actually, it won't be happening this weekend. It's the Corky Kell Classic this week. In October is when they're getting inducted. That's what happened last time. But great job by everyone involved in the Corky Kell Classic. Hopefully we get something like that similar here in Columbus, Georgia. Hey, heck, Georgia-Alabama Sports Live Classic, Georgia-Alabama Sports Classic, something like that we could have. Get all the top teams played each other at a neutral location. But I'm with you, Richard. Instead of going over each team, there's a lot of great games. We'll have predictions and stuff like that on Friday. And we gave our season predictions and records. But from what I could tell, there is not one team, not one coach that is not thrilled that football season is finally upon us. And we are excited to be at the Swamp. 8 o'clock, 7:30 is when we'll start the broadcast. 6 o'clock is when high school game day is going to start. So make sure to tune in if you want all things local for high school sports around the area. Georgia Alabama Sports Live is the premier destination for that.
Also, I want to give a shout out to the Northside Lady Patriots softball team. They're 2-0 on the season. Thrift, they got a big game next week against a crosstown rival. I would say Harris County is their big rival. They play on Tuesday, and right now the defending 5A softball champions, their goal is to try to get to Columbus in the end of October at the South Common Softball Complex, where they won it all last season. I know we're talking high school softball because the GHSA has softball in the fall.
Yep, and also cross country goes on right now. In middle school, you got middle school soccer. There's other great sports, and we're going to show them love. Going to be hard live streaming those games, but we definitely, especially with you, Richard, you're going to update us on who's winning what, who's in the top of the standings, and looking forward to another great season of high school softball around the area. Remember, this is only from public schools. Private schools play in the spring, like Brookstone, like a Glenwood, like a Calvary. But for those Shaw, Spencers, Kendricks, Carvers, Northsides, teams around the area that are in public school from Muskogee County, they also start playing now.
All right, Thrift, let's switch gears on the show. Let's switch gears and talk about some of the national sports that's going on. As we have preseason NFL week 2, some teams just signed some big-time running backs that are still in their prime. I believe Dalvin Cook, he got signed by the Jets. He is in his prime. And Ezekiel Elliott, got signed by the New England Patriots.
Richard, Richard, you're going to die on that Zeke Hill, aren't you? Because Ezekiel Elliott is, for one, nowhere near the running back he was several years ago. That was the worst deal for a running back. He honestly ruined the running back market. Once he signed that $100 million contract or whatever it was, you have not seen any running back get that because of saying we gave him that money and then 2 years later, we're basically waiving him. All right. So I think if you're New England, I would have paid money to get Dalvin Cook. I think that's a home run get for the Jets. The Jets have definitely won the offseason right now with Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, Hard Knocks. If you watch any of the episodes, you got a lot of talented players. That defense is going to be loaded. The offense now with Dalvin Cook is going to be special. But if you're the Patriots, you have to learn. Like Colin Cowherd said, you don't have Tom Brady anymore. So getting guys for less than what they're valued for would work, and maybe a little bit out of their prime would work with Tom Brady. He'd probably get the best out of them. I don't know if it's going to work for Mac Jones. So I'm not as big on that signing as I am with Dalvin Cook. But I'm more interested in seeing nobody believes in Desmond Ridder with the Atlanta Falcons. I think that if he doesn't have a good start these first 6 weeks and struggles, considering what you could have had this offseason, how long do they keep giving Arthur Smith this leeway? Because talent's there. Are you going to keep seeing guys like Kyle Pitts and Drake London not pan out to what we expect them to be because your quarterback is not up to par? We'll see. I want to believe in him. I think Arthur Smith's a heck of a coach. But nobody from what I've heard thinks Desmond Ridder, they think he's the worst starting quarterback in the NFL right now.
The Falcons have not made the playoffs since 2017. Arthur Smith has had 2 back-to-back 7-10 seasons. I mean, I believe, is on the hot seat if the Falcons do not improve or at least get 8-9, 9-8 on the doorstep of the playoffs. I'm a believer in Desmond Ridder. I thought he saw signs of promise. But I do like Taylor Heineke as a backup, the former Collins Hill standout. He's a local guy to Atlanta. And Taylor Heineke might get a shot. And he did a great job in Washington. Remember, last year, Washington Commanders beat the Falcons in Atlanta with Taylor Heineke. Right. I think that whoever the starting quarterback is for the Falcons, they have weapons. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier. You have Scotty Miller. You have Mac Hollins. The offensive line is very underrated. And I thought that the Falcons did a good job spending the money, getting big-time defensive players like Jesse Bates, Calais Campbell. I'm really optimistic, and I'm really looking forward to the Atlanta Falcons season.
Yeah, I am too, man. I think getting leaders like Calais Campbell, guys that have won at a high level to show these young guys what to do is going to be big. But, with preseason right now, you just take it one day at a time, basically. And I'm ready for that second week of September. College football-wise, I mean, now the AP poll came out. Everybody's up in arms. Who's overrated? Who's underrated? No one knows anything when it comes to these polls. Josh Pate, a good friend of mine, guy that is killing it right now in the business. He doesn't give his JP poll to at least 4 weeks into the season, because how can you really know a team after even one game, let alone none in fall camp? But everyone likes rankings. It makes for good for TV when they're going and promoting these games, and they got rankings next to them like LSU versus Florida State. I don't really care much about the preseason rankings, and I wasn't really bothered at all by it. What about you?
Well, first of all, I think that LSU being ranked underneath Alabama, I actually think on paper LSU might be a slightly better team than Alabama, because you still have an uncertainty at quarterback for the Crimson Tide. And I'm not a believer in that Auburn being unranked. I think that, they got to prove themselves on the field, but I like the hiring of Hugh Freeze. I think Peyton Thorne is a decent quarterback. And I know your Auburn Tigers, Thrift, are going to surprise some people this year, but they got to play at Texas A&M. The Georgia game is always tough, even though it's on the plains. That is going to be a huge game. And I know with you being an Auburn fan and you being part of Sports Visions, I mean, you've had some moments where you got to go to Jordan-Hare Stadium and be on the field, and I just got to say that's got to be great for you, just as a member of the media, just to be a part of that.
Yeah, it is, and I can't wait to go cover that first game at 3:30. I'll be covering a lot of Auburn and Georgia and maybe some Alabama games throughout this year. So you're right, going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to be calling games on Thursday with you, Richard. We're going to be calling games on Friday, and then I'm going to cover games on Saturday, and then we turn around and we got a show on Sunday. So it's content here for Georgia Alabama Sports Live and Sports Visions. By the way, the Atlanta Braves are up 3-0 right now. They have just been giving it to the New York Yankees. And there's nothing that I am more proud of to say than Yankees suck and go Braves.
Absolutely. It's really payback for those World Series in 96 and 99. It's nice to see the Yankees in last place. They're 60-59, 14 back from the Baltimore Orioles. But how about those Atlanta Braves? And I think that Matt Olson not only is going to get to 50 home runs, right now he's leading the majors with home runs. I think Ronald Acuna Jr., he's going to be flirting with the 50-50 club. Well, I don't know if Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to get to 50 home runs, but
not 50-50. I think the 40-50, maybe 50.
Definitely 40-50. What I'd like to see that in my lifetime, Thrift, I want to see the first player that's the member of the 50-50 club. It's a hard feat to do because 50 stolen bases, hitting 50 home runs is tough as it is.
Yeah, he hit 40 home runs a few years ago back in 2019 and was vying and flirting with the MVP. He was on track to hit over 40 this year. He's 14 from that. He's at 26 now. But if he does get to 40 home runs, he's got 55 stolen bases. He'll have 70 stolen bases. 40 home runs, 70 stolen bases, batting .340. That's MVP numbers. You said Matt Olson's going to get to 50. Yeah, no doubt. He may get to 50 by the end of this week. Heck, end of this month. I think he's going to be flirting with 17 away from getting that 60 number. I would love for him to be the first Brave to get 60. He's another guy. He's batting .276 right now. His average is going up. He has just been killing it. He gets to bat .280, .290 and hits 60 home runs. He's going to be another guy. Two guys who could win MVPs this year. But the Braves, I think they're going to beat their record of 106 wins, which is what they had in 98. I think they'll get to 107. And I think they're going to be the prohibitive favorite to win the World Series this year. I know the Orioles are hot and they're good right now, but from top to bottom, that roster, and they lead the majors in home runs with over 229. So, elite roster. Expect them just to finish out the season, not with a bang because they don't want to be worn out heading to the playoffs, but love the Braves. But, Richard, before we get out of here, again, we're going live. Georgia Alabama Sports Live at the Swamp. Pacelli versus Glenwood. Two top 10 teams in their respective states. Two premier programs around the area. And I can't wait, man. High school game day is going to be a lot of fun. We'll have our guest picker who's going to pick the helmet they think is going to win. And then we get to do the broadcast starting at 7:30. Me and you, Richard, taking down everything going on around this area. We're trying to we're trying to bring something to the Tri-City area that's never been done before. And I'm glad this is the first place we get to be at, a place that I know and hold near and dear to my heart with the Gators.
Thrift, I cannot wait to call this game with you. I am excited to be a part of the Georgia Alabama Sports Live team. Remember that you can watch this on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Go to the YouTube channel and subscribe to the channel as we're trying to build our brand. And remember that the games are going to be broadcasted live on Georgia Alabama Sports Live's YouTube channel. So you might want to check that out. And this has really been a successful Sports Beat, Georgia Alabama Sports Live crossover show. I want to thank my guest, Thrift Barringer. Thrift, any final thoughts before we close the broadcast?
Yeah, Richard, again, looking forward to a great Friday worth of games. Thank you to all our partners. Thank you to Sports Visions and anyone that wants to be a sponsor for our live streams. We're doing over 15 to 20 games. Contact me and Richard Holdridge. Thank you, Richard. And thank you, everybody that tunes in. Like our Facebook page, subscribe on YouTube, and we'll see you Friday at 6 for high school game day.
All right. Good night, everybody.